One. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome along to round number 7 of your console tier 1 season. Of course, we kicked off our console week last time out with tiers 2, 3 and 4, and we're here today with tier number 1. My name's Joseph Black, and alongside me, this isn't going to get confusing at all, we've got two Josephs in the commentary box for the second time in this game cycle. And well, Joseph, how are we feeling about this evening's action?
Very good, thank you, Joseph. Yeah, excited to be back in the commentary box. They couldn't put. Well, Border is a little bit under the weather with whatever flu is going around. So, firstly, I hope he gets well soon. But yeah, always confusing to be back in the comms box with you. But never mind that. Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty calm season so far, hasn't it? We've got a runaway leader now in the very in-form SCI Silo. He's absolutely killing it. On the game cycle and indeed in the last few weeks and months. And one thing is for sus with him, he will lead the championship at Christmas. So that gives him peace of mind as well to push on and just try and get that gap now as big as possible.
Certainly does. And well, it's especially been an interesting one to watch because Dirk took such a huge lead at the start of the championship. 3 wins in 3 and 2 points since has really put him under the cosh and really allowed Silo to break free in what is now the halfway point of the season. We will have 10 rounds of this championship. Of course, the first 6 rounds. This will be round number 7, even. Is just before Christmas, and then we'll come back with 3 rounds just after Bahrain, China, and Sao Paulo. But there is a big asterisk next to Bahrain's name, and we'll talk about that one later on. But without further ado, we're going to head trackside for the first of the evening's action, and we'll watch with the first couple of drivers coming around the final few corners on the racetrack. The first one will be Kevin Zunneberg, and we'll watch on board with a lap of the Haas driver as he heads through the Red Bull Ring. Heading up to turn number 1, you want to ride the curbing as much as you possibly can, then throw yourself, try not to get unsettled by the inside of turn 1. Then you're heading up up the straight. It is technically turn number 2 as you go through it, but it is also a DRS zone. It's a bit of a weird middle ground. Then turn number 3, huge apex hit, and then on the exit of the corner, you're trying to put the power down again for the third DRS zone. Of course, the first one was down the main straight, the second one through turn 2, and then out of turn number 3. Then 4 is the next corner up, and Kevin Zunneberg runs slightly wide out of it, and just taking a little bit too much curbing, I think, for his liking. Then heading through the next couple of corners, as Silo is actually the first driver to set a time. It's 102.880, not too bad of a time so far. Kevin Zunneberg, huge slide, and that's going to cost the Haas, and that's going to mean that he backs out of his first lap as his teammate goes into second.
Yeah, I'm afraid he's been hit with the commentator's curse there with watching on board with him. A couple of invalidations around the circuit. Just watching TF10 Jerome go really far off the track at the final corner, but his lap was done already. Next across the line, I think, will be a Ferrari. It'll be Lawrence to kickstart his flying lap. And I think Finlay is the car behind. He has also invalidated. Very easy to get caught out round here. There's only 10 corners, but each are, well, very unique in their own ways as well, particularly the final 2 corners. You're plummeting blind down the hill, and that is where you can very easily get caught off guard by the track limits as well. I mean, you can't really get away with turn 1 either. Yes, there is a big sausage curb as the deterrent, and it will slow you down, but the game will just chalk off your lap time there and then. So one for the drivers to think about, of course, but it's a circuit you can get 4 runs in. It's good to do it now rather than later.
Certainly is. 4 runs in the racing sense is very, very important. 4 runs in the cricket sense, slightly less so. But we've got Dirk now heading through the first sector, a 15.784 in the first. And that doesn't feel too bad. It's certainly not purple. And he needs to find a lot of time. He wants to wrestle this championship, vaguely at least, back in his favour, because there's still plenty of opportunities throughout the rest of the season to score points. You've still got 3 rounds to go, and if there is one slip up from any one of the drivers around him, so Silo, for example, he could have a mistake in him heading into the next couple of rounds, and then that'll put him under the cosh, just like Dirk has been so far throughout the course of this campaign. We'll see what the V-Carb is able to do. Of course, a very experienced driver in himself, and well, we'll see what he does. He invalidates, in fact, out of the penultimate corner, so he won't be setting a lap time. What about his Shazoo Cedar Igniters teammate Venom? Well, he's invalidated as well, and well, our recent World Online Racing Legacy Division champions are, well, they're very well represented here tonight. Typical one driver who is not part of that team, and or one driver who's trying to establish himself in the first tier of console racing. He heads through the first sector. The Aston Martin took a while to get into the lobby, so might have had a little bit less practice than others. He's a little bit less warmed up, but he's certainly going to be trying to make an impression.
Little fun fact about Typical, it was on F1 2021 in console tier 3. I actually called, I think, his first WOR podium. I think that was like season 11 or 12, which feels like an absolute age ago, because it was. But yeah, do fondly remember that race and that season, and it's good to see now Typical, a consistent driver in the top tier of World Online Racing, and of course he is looking for a points finish tonight. It'll be very hard to get himself amongst that mix, but formally the circuit has gone very well around, as I say. He's invalidated this lap. What would it have been? A 103.8 would have been comfortably slowest, so yeah, a lot of work to do there for Typical. How about our tyre whisperer, SCI Volakongan? Again, a big part of that three-time now SCI championship winning team over in the Legacy division. He goes 7th fastest. It's all very congested in there, of course, with the shortest lap time in terms of duration on the calendar. It gets very, very tight.
Certainly does. It gets very, very tight, and we've got everybody split by 0.8 of a second, just under, in fact. It's 0.76 of a second that's splitting Tony Reich, the fastest driver of all so far, and Schumacher, the slowest driver of all so far, but we've still got 6 or 7 without lap times, and Mattia Manga will be hoping to become, well, the 6th, or get rid of himself from that curse and to make it down to 6 drivers. He's got a couple more corners to go to do so, but he does look in pretty good stead. But the final couple of corners around this racetrack are very difficult to get right when you're pushing, especially in qualifying. And Mattia Manga slightly off of it in the final one, but not punished, and up to the line, 103.102. So it is going to be 6th place for the Alpine man. What about TF10 Jerome? Well, he's just headed out of the first sector with a 15.8. And that was slightly slower than we saw his teammate Dirk doing just a couple of minutes ago. But he's got that beautiful V-Carb livery, the pink one, of course, that you get through the challenges that are out at the moment. And it's very good to see that one of them, at least, is representing those new colours. Jerome then around the final couple of corners, where he does invalidate in the penultimate and slides his way out of the final one. And dare I say it, he's done quite well to keep that one out of the wall on the left-hand side of our screens and the right-hand side of the circuit.
Yeah, surprised to see multiple drivers there struggling now. Finley's gone reportedly purple in the first sector, but I can tell you there has been a few quicker first sectors than that. Lasts about 15 seconds and always hugely dependent on that first corner. So an important one to get right certainly can really determine whether your lap is going to be up at the top or down towards the bottom for SCI Finley. He wants to be towards the top. As for his season so far, well, I don't think he's actually raced all that much. Yeah, no, he's down in 14th in the championship, a 6th and a 7th place finish as a reserve so far this season in the only 2 races that he's done. So, yeah, fairly crucial points, but he has turned up. Round in the final corner comes Finley, looking to take advantage of another appearance, and he goes up to 3rd in the qualifying standings so far. It's a really respectable effort to be only 8 thousandths off of our championship leader.
Certainly is, and Silo, his teammate, is currently trying to improve on a lap. He's not improved so far. Of course, as you say, our championship leader is on the front row of the grid at the moment, and he is probably the man in the most form of all, and he's hoping to be locked in once again and locked to the top of the sheets. What can he do in the second sector? He was down. He's down even more, so dare I say it, Silo is not going to be improving. What about Nico Castronovo? Well, he's got 800ths on his previous time through the first sector. What about the second? Is he going to be up by more than a tenth? He is. He's going to be up by double that. It's just over 0.2 of a second that Nico Castronovo has managed to find in the first 2 sectors. This bodes well for the Williams, as he, yet again, has got one of those brand new liveries on the car, and that Williams looking very, very good. The final corner for the number 13 almost invalidates. Not quite. Is Nico Castronovo going to be able to put himself in the upper echelons? Well, not quite. He's 5th place, which is just outside of it, I'd say. The top 2 rows of the field is where he would have been aiming. Monza's backed out of his lap. What about Ward's? Well, he's just, I believe, has he just come to an end of one? No, he's just about starting one, and he has improved by 0.03 of a second in that first sector. Dirk once again is invalidated, and well, I say Silo's a man in form. Dirk's won very, very out of it.
Yeah, he is, and obviously confidence took a massive hit after the lap one incident in Melbourne. He didn't qualify particularly well there, but there was no real chance to recover in that race, and yeah, that gap widening week by week, and he will need something rather spectacular now to win the championship. Of course, a Silo DNF and a dirt race win would take that gap down to, what, 2 points, I think. So, you know, he's got to think positively about this one, and all he can do now is try and get a good lap on the board, because he's down in P17 at the moment without one. That's quite a slow first sector, is a 15.7, again, probably 2/10 off a sort of optimum around there. He's heading down now towards turn number 4, another tricky braking zone. Use all that curb on the left-hand side, just a little bit on turn in as well. Don't use too much on the exit. You can bottom out there. Pretty steady lap time from Dirk so far, and really he's just focusing on getting a valid one on the board. Slightly wide there at turn 6, but allows him to take a wide turn in for turn 7. Going to pick up a little bit of tow from that. Was that Mercedes? No, sorry, an Aston Martin there, trying to get every single thousandth of a second he can at the moment. Dirk now really chucking the car in, and too much at the final corner. It would have been a 3.073, which actually would have put him at P11. So not a particularly great lap, but another invalidation for Dirk. He should really only have one more run left in this session. Ouch, it's, yeah, crunch time now for him.
Certainly is. He's really struggling as Dirk to get a lap time on the board, which is really disappointing to see from him so far, but we might be seeing him improve, and it's not been a very, very good weekend for the V-Carb so far. His teammate Jerome slower in the second sector, but still valid and trying to make his way through turns number 8 and 9, the final corners on this Spielberg circuit, and then Jerome then will come to the line. The number 11, what will he be able to do? Will he be able to improve? He's managed to keep it valid, and he's managed to make a 103.061, so only just a bit quicker than what his teammate would have put up. What is Typical able to do? Is he able to make Dirk the only driver without a valid lap so far? What he's doing well so far is the Aston Martin to head through the first couple of sectors and keep it clean, because it's very, very difficult when the pressure is ramped up. When you have had a couple of poor runs to keep it straight, Typical, though, runs over the curbing too much into turn 8 and bails out of his lap at the very last possible moment. Lawrence also bails out of his lap. He's into the pit lane. In the meantime, Lawrence's teammate Misha, well, he's found his way onto the front row. So a good time from the FRT driver. One that we wouldn't necessarily have been expecting to find himself at the top of the field. But everybody is coming in for the final runs. And it's Tony Riche to Misha, and then the two Mercedes in behind. Lawrence and Nico Castronovo, and then Volakonga, Monza, Quantum, and then Jerome will round out the top 10 so far. Everybody is going to be coming into the pit, getting themselves ready for the final runs, and well, Jerome doing very well to throw a lap in right there when he's under pressure, but the pressure is very, very difficult to deal with, really. 4 minutes 34 in the session left, and especially for the likes of Dirk and Typical, who haven't got anything on the board, it's now or never.
Yeah, it is. And of course, being this circuit where there are 4 runs available to the drivers, they'll be immensely disappointed with how this session has turned out. There's no doubt about that one. And for Dirk, well, so start with Silo first. He can really think about doing as much as he can this evening to effectively try and secure this championship if Dirk starts at the back of the grid. If he can take the gap close to around 50 points going into Bahrain, then there's only going to be 2 races left after that one in the new year. So, yeah, he is very much on the verge if the qualifying results stay as they are. I've got a couple cars out on track already, perhaps fueling up for an extra run if they need it. The soft tyres can yield a couple of flying laps if you have to bail out early, and you can keep them in a good temperature window so they don't start wearing excessively. It's probably a good time to get out there, but of course impeding has been a big topic of the F1 games so far this year, certainly in the Legacy Division finale as well this week. If anybody watched it, 2 big impeding incidents in qualifying. Hopefully we don't have a repeat of that around a very, very tight circuit in terms of getting 20 cars around there.
Yeah, hopefully not, and well, be very. It's going to be a good race. It's one of those races, I think, that's going to really start really well, might get a bit boring in the middle, and then it's going to really light up right at the end. And Woods is definitely going for a second lap out on this circuit. He's not even bothered to try and push on this first one, just to try and get his tyres a little bit more warmed up. What about Monza? Is he going to go for a lap right now? It looks like he might be flying a little bit more than Ward's was, and we'll see what the Haas is able to do. Lots of traffic will be right ahead of him. The first ones to pass are a Williams, and I believe that might be a Red Bull. Indeed it is, and Monza's been able to pass them pretty nice and simply up to the first split time. Is it going to be an improvement? Is he really pushing on this lap? Yes, he is, and he's up by 200ths of a second. That's a good start from the Haas driver, who's trying to push his way up. He's made some claims about if he didn't pick up a podium this week, which I'm not going to go into, but those in the know. Monza now heading through turn number 4, and on the exit, having a little bit of a slide. He'll be hoping to get a decent qualifying session in, and he's 8th so far, so he's certainly got an opportunity. But 2 minutes left in the session. The track has enough time to evolve enough that Monza's lap might not be enough, and he's down in the second sector, down by 0.017, so 102.980 might be the peak of the Haas's powers here today. He's got a couple more corners to go to see what he can really do. More drivers have started their push laps. Monza's going to come to the end of his. Is it an improvement? It is going to be a minor improvement that gets him through on Nico Castronovo, but nobody else. Having a look at some more of the drivers, they are definitely on the final runs. We're watching on with Lawrence, who heads through after the first sector. He's improved a little bit, and there's still a lot of time for a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, indeed, and a couple of different approaches with the double out lap, and in the case of Monza, they're just going straight in and getting the lap over and done with. Lawrence still 18 thousandths of a second up. The second sector split, yeah, he's found a little bit more time here, so he's actually threatening a front row start, is the Ferrari driver. Quite a result if he can get this one. His teammate currently occupying the second spot on the grid at this moment in time. He's looking to displace him round the final corner then. Oh, and he's dropped it at the final corner. Just lost it on traction, and another victim of a really tough final corner here in Austria. I'm going to go to Silo quickly. He's hit him. Did he get any damage from that? A bit of front wing did come flying off somebody. There was no ghosting involved. Lawrence is out of the session. Silo definitely hemorrhaged more than 5 thousandths of a second, which is exactly what he would have needed to overtake Tony Reich, but Finley goes to the top. That's quite unbelievable.
It certainly is. What a moment that might be throughout the course of this race. We've got more drivers coming to the line to finish or start their laps, but it does look as though, well, that's going to be the end for Lawrence. It was a damage on the Ferrari car, and that's very, very unfortunate for his sake. I think Monza's going to go for one more go around the final corner. Anybody coming to an end, in fact, he's pulled to the inside, so that might be him, indicating that he is done. Nico Castronovo just about starting his lap, as is his teammate in the checkered flag, has waved for Fana Spinoda and for Venom, as well as Kevin Zunneberg and Lawrence, and Typical now, who will not get a time on the board. Who's coming around the final corner? It is Jerome, who wasn't improving. He's run wide, he's run too wide, he's risked it, and he's invalidated. Mattia Manga has pushed it, risked it, and has managed to keep it on the circuit, but it's only 10th place for himself. EVR Kareem up to the line. He's not improved. He's very much not improved. Who else? Dirk, is he finally able to set a lap time on the board? Indeed he is, but it's only good enough for 11th place. There's a Mercedes around the final corner. That's going to be Finley, who's just going for a little bit of a parade lap, hoping that he's done enough. Tony Reich has invalidated, so he indeed has done enough, unless anybody out on the circuit right now has improved. Schumacher's got 2 tenths, but he is still 4 tenths off the rest of the field, and invalidation is not going to help his case, and so he remains down at the bottom of this field as the final few drivers are going to draw this session to a close, and it is going to be SCI Finley who finds himself on a very impressive pole position.
Yeah, it is indeed for Finley, and I got his results wrong. He's indeed a full-time driver for Mercedes. I thought he partnered up with Silo, and he did. 8th and 6th, his 2 results this season. Now getting a pole position on the board for the first time this season. Very nicely done there, Finley. But Lawrence, who is leading the penalty point standings, will have 1 or 2 questions asked about him there. He certainly denied Silo the opportunity to make it a Mercedes front row lockout, with the Brit having to take a voiding action. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that one in the steward's room. Tony Reich, though, on the front row, he's been brilliantly consistent. 4 podiums in his last 4 races. That includes a race win back in Silverstone, and he's still very much in the championship fight as well, so do not rule him out for being a contender for this race.
Certainly is. We will see what is going to happen. Finley on the front row, on the front position on this grid alongside Tony Reish. But it's going to be a very, very good race session indeed. But just a reminder of the drivers' standings heading into this race. It's Silo ahead of Dirk by a whole total of 27 points. Tony Reish 4 points off of him now, and Volakongan closing in on 69. Then a 21-point gap to Quantum, who very briefly looked like he might be challenging at the very top, but has settled into his normal upper mid pack for himself. 5th place for Quantum, 6th for Max van der Geest, then 7th for Nico Castronovo, then Kevin Zannenberg, Venom and Schumacher round out the top 10. No race for Quantum, for Max van der Geest this evening. Quantum finds himself slightly further down the field, so still opportunities for these drivers to do something. Finley to Tony Reish, by the way, this is the grid. Then Silo, Misha, and then Lawrence and Monza. Nico Castronovo, Volokong, and EVR Karim and Mattia Manga, who's able to put in a lap right at the end. They round out the top 10, and then it'll be Dirk just outside. Then Sviade, Quantum, Jerome, Fana Spinoda, Kevin Zannenberg, Venom, Schumacher typical, and then Wards to round out this 20-car field. But Wards is going to get promoted, of course, because he had a 5th-place grid penalty that will not be applied. We will have a lobby restart, and we will be all sorted. No restart, it seems, because in fact it's not going to be a restart because Ward's qualified 19th, so he doesn't mind taking the hit and starting on the back row. But Joseph, who have you got your eye on for this evening?
Yeah, I mean, that top 3 is very competitive in its own way, and of course surprised that Finley has gone on to take pole position there with Silo's record this season. But you know, all eyes on, I think I'm gonna say Volakongan, because the last time we raced here in season 20, it was a championship decider. It rounded off the season. Well, it was, you know, such brutal luck for Tech Brutal, no pun intended there, as he suffered a puncture to hand Volakongan the race victory and indeed the championship on that occasion. By far the most dramatic championship decider we've had in console tier 1. But, you know, under so much pressure that day, and to keep his tyres in great nick throughout, never really looked at threat of losing his position, and ultimately he didn't, and he went on to win that race. So he's looking to defend his Austrian GP crown from 8th, and his consistency this season as well, not dropping out of the points in any race. A couple of podiums to his name. He will be in this fight, no doubt.
Yeah, certainly so. He's very much a championship contender in this race, and he's very much a championship contender. I mean, throughout, really. He's proven that time and time again that he can be an incredible driver. And, of course, as you say, championship victor. Last time out we raced here in Austria. Controversial, maybe, because of course, it's never great to see a championship won thanks to a puncher, but it's all about that tyre management. It's all about all about the consistency, and that's exactly what he was able to embody in season 20, which rounded off our F1 24 game cycle. Not a great game cycle, all things considered, but in terms of the actual what ended up happening, it was very, very good fun to watch. The drivers are getting ready, their final preparations, the final strategy adjustments on their cars, and with their teams, the final conversations that they'll be able to have without anything else happening. And then we'll be able to get our race underway for round number 7 of season number 22. Of course, we've got Silo, who could be becoming a champion very, very soon. Of course, not today, but he could be becoming very, very shortly. He's in first place, and he's going to set us off as the 5 red lights are on. The drivers are ready, and the action is going to get underway. It's a good start from Finley, who's going to cover off Tony Reish. Silo is going to be on the inside line of the Red Bull into the first corner, but decides not to go for the move. Monza goes through on Lawrence, and he's up to 5th place, so it's a good start from the Haas driver, but the top 5 look like they're going to filter themselves out pretty easily. Is Volakongan looking for a move on Nico Castronovo? I'm not sure, but Silo is looking for a move on Tony Reish. He sends it. Tony doesn't quite give him the space. There's no contact between the two drivers, and Tony just looks to cover him off. He's very much pushed him to the inside line of turn number 3, but is he going to be able to push him to the inside again of turn 4? Eventually, Tony has to sacrifice that move for just going around the outside and taking the traction, but the traction has not been enough for the Red Bull on lap number 1, and it is going to be the Mercedes that takes that second spot.
Yeah, lovely work from Silo there, getting everything he done on Tony, as he needed to on the opening lap. Further back, Mattia Manga got shuffled wide at the first corner onto the sausage curb. Lost a load of places on the run up towards turn 2 and 3, but now he's starting to make a little bit of recovery on those medium tyres. Would have taken a warning there as he runs wide at the penultimate corner. That's one lap down, and still the action is going on towards the back. Typical overtaking Wards. They're in a bit of a drag race towards turn 1, and two of the only cars side by side. That's the Alpine swap places. Quantum, obviously knowing that his teammate is on the medium tyres and is going to be the driver to push on here. We're now in the DRS train that is so common around Austria. Mattia Manga, though, the only driver on the mediums, is the one making the moves.
He certainly is, and there's only one driver, as you say, on the medium set of tyres, and it's going to have to be a push couple of laps from Mattia Manga, who shapes up a move very late on Dirk, doesn't go for it in the end, and his teammate actually does come under pressure from Venom, who tries to make his way through, but in the end, Venom might fall into the clutches of Zviade. Not quite, as we're going to end lap number 2 very soon, and it's a very quick lap. That's why we've got 36 of them here around the Red Bull Ring in the Spielberg Mountains, and it's a Mercedes 1-2 as it stands. Finley leading Silo. It's a Suzuki Igniters 1-2 as well, and so they may well work together both as teammates in the tier and also in general as well, so they know each other very well, and they know what they're going to be capable of. They might even have practiced together, and that will give them advantages, especially when they're in a position that they are right now. Mattia Manga and Quantum, no teamwork between the two Alpines. That's very far off of the circuit from Mattia Manga. I think he might have been attempting to go side by side into the first corner, which of course does not go, and Quantum in the end tops him off and might go for a move on Dirk down the inside. He's going to try it, but in the end, Mattia Manga trying to fight back with his teammate. So it's all dicey for 10th and 12th. And we've got a swap for the lead of the race as well, as Silo through on Finley, and Tony Rees trying to get himself involved. There is contact a little bit between the two, as there is going to be contact. Mattia Manga going down the order as well, and that is huge in terms of the two Alpines, but Silo leads the race now. Tony Rees holds on to that third place, unfortunately not able to get through on Finley, and Mattia Manga drops down the order.
It was a battle I was keeping my eye on, really, away from the race lead, just knowing that something was about to happen. And Mattia Manga, after the turn 1 contact, he broke late going into turn 3, and I think hit Quantum again, or very least nearly hit him. And then at turn 4, he's just gone for it again in a desperate attempt to try and overtake Quantum. Now, of course, Mattia is filling in for David, who is not here this evening, as he would be Quantum's usual teammate. So really, they didn't really have an incentive to work together, but, you know, Quantum felt he was quicker. Quantum re-overtook him, and yeah, well, Mattia Manga just wanted it back an awful lot more, and unfortunately, they've come to blows there. Quantum got away with it, but Mattia Manga, with the contact model, spinning himself around effectively. If he had have taken Quantum out, the collision would have been his fault, no doubt about that one. So, yeah, a really strange incident as Misha fends off Monza. Lawrence is trying to fend off Ola Kongan as he dropped another position there to Nick after a pretty poor start for the driver that caused the end of qualifying controversy. But, yeah, 4 laps down. We've had a collision between teammates. We've got a 1-2 at the front, and we've got our championship leader leading. What a start.
Certainly doing a 7/10 gap between Silo and Finley is exactly what the lead Mercedes would have been wanting to see at this point in time. Tony Rees did attempt to move on turn number 4 on the last lap, so he's very much looking racy on the back of the other two, but not quite when he has a moment like that. Tony Rees just running all over the curb and getting it all wrong, and I've disconnected from the session.
Oh dear. Yes, you have. Right. I'll have to radio commentate for a minute while I get you back in, but it's a good job we did sort the EA stuff out beforehand. Right, any moves going in towards turn number 4? Doesn't look like it, so unfortunately we're not missing out on too much, but just give me a shout when you're back in and I'll hand over the reins once again.
I will do.
Well, lap 5 of 36. We've got our first time penalty. Radio Joseph F1. That's a time penalty report. Lawrence is the recipient for multiple warnings there. And yeah, just about sums up his start to the race, really. Dropping positions, and will drop even more if the other drivers around him don't get penalties. But track limit violations were so common in qualifying that, he certainly won't be the last one to get that black and white symbol next to his name. Slightly poor exit for Finley on the exit of turn 1. This is an opportunity now for Tony Rees to try and get back through and split the two Mercedes drivers in the slipstream that doesn't really exist on this game, does it? He goes to the outside with an audacious lunge. Can he get the traction down? They bang wheels ever so slightly, and that's halted Tony Rees's momentum coming down the hill and in towards turn 4. He'll be on the outside line again. Finley deploys some of his battery to try and fend him off. They're sparging each other going into turn 4. Finley not willing to allow him to go around the outside. They're still wheel to wheel going into turn 6 here. Up the inside he goes. Can he finally just squeeze Finley out wide? Yes, he can. Still through turn 7, wheel to wheel. I can't believe it. It's one of the battles of the season, and we can't see it at this moment in time. In towards turn 9 now, the penultimate corner. Finley somehow has stayed ahead since turn 1. That battle was ongoing where Finley had a poor exit, but here's the thing. Finley has now dropped DRS to Silo, just crucially at the end of that previous lap. So, Tony Rees now should be able to get this one done slightly more easily as he has the DRS to deploy, whereas Finley doesn't. Going up the hill and in towards turn 3, batteries for both of them. They've deployed so much while going wheel to wheel and tried to drag race each other into the heavy braking zones that Tony Rees is just going to have to try and pick his moment here. Here he comes. Yes, he's got him. Down in towards turn number 4. The DRS doing him the favour there where Slipstream couldn't. Big move for Tony Rees. He splits the two Mercedes once again and into P2. How are you looking and getting back in?
May I have another invite, please?
Of course. Sorry, that battle was terrific. I had to keep on top of that one.
I didn't want to interrupt your flow. I should be able to get back in now. I had the classic EA thing of not being able to get in because I was in the main menu, not in time trial. I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, apologies to those of you watching from home or now indeed listening from home, of course. And we're going to try and fix this as soon as we can. And I am now back in the lobby. I should be able to get moving pictures back to you very, very shortly. I never want to disconnect. It seems to be something that I tend to do quite a lot, and I'm not quite sure why. So yeah, apologies for that one. And that's why I don't run streams anymore. But we are getting back into the lobby. We'll get moving cars, moving pictures, and the beautiful rolling hills of the Österreich Ring, which was its former name. It's now known as the Red Bull Ring. Back to you very, very shortly. And it does appear as though we may well be able to do it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are racing. And it's one thing that I've noticed, Silo has broken that DRS. And, well, Tony Rees has managed to make his way through to that P2, of course, as was mentioned and alluded to a moment ago. But without that DRS, there's not much he's going to be able to do.
Yeah, this is Silo all over now. You know, the minute the cars behind are to DRS, Silo just gets a wriggle on. And more so in the second stint as well. So we could be talking another impressive race-winning margin here this evening. But this battle for P2 has been brilliant. It was the contributor to Silo managing to break DRS. And back comes Finley. He's back into P2. And the fight continues. This has been great viewing so far. They've kept it relatively clean as well. Bit of defending going on there for Monza as he tries to hold on to P5. But I'm just so gutted we couldn't catch that full stops. So I think we've lost it briefly.
The reconnection
stops. So I think we've lost it briefly.
The reconnection is allegedly back. So I think we are allegedly back. So I think we are so back, ladies and gentlemen. We are so back. I don't know what's going on tonight. My internet thing is currently flashing red, which I will sort out after the stream. That thing is currently flashing red, which I will sort out after the stream. But the stream did indeed drop, so apologies for that one. And yeah, lap 10 of 36. We're going to hopefully get through the rest of it with no more issues, and it does appear as though the pit window may have opened. And the reason I say this is because Kevin Zonnenberg's just come out of the pit lane. Now, whether he had a front wing change or not, I don't know. I don't think he did, but we now have a potential opportunity for drivers to come into the pit lane as we see the hard compound tyres are not so good at this point, but it's certainly the mediums. that will have gone off, and that is why we've seen Mattia Manga into the pit lane, and that's why we see everybody on a set of the hard compound tyres now. Silo just ahead of Finley's DRS range, and it appears as though the teammates might be working together.
Yeah, absolutely now. And I think Silo just needs to try and protect Finley a little bit. Jerome picking up a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. Kevin Zumberg got 10 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, which effectively renders his race pretty useless from now on. Unfortunately, back comes Tony Rees. He retakes the position going into turn number 3. And now Silo, again, doesn't want to, shave time now because he is at risk of losing the race lead entirely. But yeah, certainly an interesting one in the Mercedes camp as Quantum is now finally starting to pick up the pace. He's up into P9. Has a bit of clean air to push into as well, and he should be able to catch up Volakongan in these areas of the track where he can benefit from that cleaner air in turn 6 all the way through to turn 10. So yeah, an interesting point of the race. Everyone now on hard tyres and decisions being made.
Yeah, certainly are, and it's all just thinking for these drivers at this point in time. We have loads of opportunities for them to think. I think the biggest concern will be the two Mercedes. They'll be thinking about when they come into the pit lane, and of course now they've let that over a second lead slip really to Tony Rees. It's opened up the door for the Red Bull to really try and affect their strategic options, because what they could have done before is have Finley hold off Tony Rees to about 2.2 seconds. Then Silo could pit, 2.2 seconds. Finley could come in at the same lap, lose maybe 0.3 of a second, if that, and then they could have sorted themselves out. But no, instead they have to fight with the Grand Track 10 driver, which could be a huge opportunity for Tony Rees, but a huge missed chance for Silo and Finley, as that is Mattia Manga, the first driver out of this session. He chose the wrong strategy, and he has called it quits on lap number 12, a third of the way through this Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, plenty of DNFs last week. Of course, a bit of a rain-impacted race and a lot of drivers that weren't really involved towards the front. They tend to press the DNF button, don't they? And Mattia Manga, yeah, just a victim of his own downfall there with that lunge on Quantum. Right, we've got pit stops. People getting rid of the hard tyres. 12 laps into this race. They've done an 11-lap stint. It's Misha, Nico, and I think Kareem coming in there, yeah, as they shuffle down the order, all putting on another set of hard tyres, so committing to the 2-stop. We've seen punctures, as I said, in Season 20. That was on the last game cycle. Are we seeing just that high tyre wear creep back in again and trying to protect themselves from a potential late race puncture? We'll see, though, as they do now have 11 seconds to catch to rejoin the back of this train.
Yeah, it certainly will be, and it will be a 2-stop for, I think, a majority of the drivers. If they are going to pit from the mediums to the hards, it will be lap 14 where the pit window will open. Of course, they're on the hards switching to the mediums. They're going to try and, if they do the 1-stop, it will be stretching this stint as much as they possibly can. That will be the aim of the game. And, well, lap 13 of 36, they'd have to stretch them to at least lap 22, if not later. And, well, the hards, they can deal with that. It's the mediums that are really the problem, as Tony Rees and the rest of the drivers come into the pit lane. And I think also at the same time, it's a big case of console bias. So PC grip appears to be a thing on this game. Console drivers will tell you a lot about PC grip. They'll tell you a lot more than PC drivers. But it appears to be the case that the tyres will wear more on console than on PC. So you might see 1-stops attempted in Austria on the PC side on Mondays, but less so on the console side on Thursdays and Fridays. They're more likely, they are almost guaranteed to be going for 2-stop strategies, which is exactly what we're seeing today. And although we have seen drivers switching from the hards on lap 14, switching to another set of the hards, or in Venom's case, the mediums. So everybody is going to commit to this 2-stop, I think. Only Silo, Dirks, Viade, Jerome, Wards, and typically the only drivers to not have done so far. And, well, currently we have a battle for the lead of this chasing pack. Nico Castronova got through on Misha. Tony Rees had a nose. But that's the difference of pitting 1 lap earlier, because Tony Rees, who was second, now finds himself third in just this train.
Yeah, he does. And that is just the consequence of, the 1-lap undercut. And we'll see it more and more now as Silo comes into the pit lane. Where will he come out? We know he can make efficient overtakes, so might not be too worried, but he will drop probably behind the pair of his rivals for the race lead here. And indeed, Zwidek coming in to the pit lane as well. Out comes Silo. He has the shorter run around turn 1, but it is a lot tighter around there. Another 3-second time penalty for Lawrence. The two Mercedes are wheel to wheel, and Silo does the sensible thing. Allow your teammate through that's on the warmer tyres. He will be in the better position for the remainder of this lap. But yeah, actually not that much damage done to Silo. He started here. He can make the positions up again.
He certainly can. He's going to try to at the very least for Silo, and he's going to have the tyre grip towards the end of the race. Of course, it's all going to be so very close between all of the drivers, and the edge might be the fact that he's coming later and he's not lost out too much time. He is behind Tony Reich, he is behind Finley, so there is potential opportunities for him to slip up. But the way that he's driven so far this season, especially after the first few rounds, you wouldn't imagine that he's going to slip up. You'd imagine that he's going to absolutely nail it. It provides you with a lot of faith in a driver when you can see something along those lines, alongside the lines of such dominance from Silo, as that's Volokongan getting through on Monza, who's target of a podium, not quite looking so peachy now, but he's going to try and have a look down the inside of our former champion, but no such doing for the Haas driver, who backs out just before turn number 1. Lap 16 of 36, so nearly halfway through this one here today, and we've got Dirk, who leads by 2.1 seconds towards in second place, but of course that's not the battle that we're looking for. We're looking for the battle for the lead of the chasing pack. Nico Castronovo, who's managed to get it down to 5.1 seconds between himself and the driver at the back of the previous pack, Typical, and Tony Reich and Misha swapping positions. The FRT driver doing an incredible job today to keep up and maybe fight for his first podium of the season. Finley and Silo in behind, though, they are very they'll be aggressive. They know they'll probably need to be, because they've been on the front foot at the start of this race. They've been switched over to the back foot by the fact that they've come in 1 lap later, or in Silo's case, 2 laps later. And they're going to have to try and refight it back. Lap 17, Dirk, Wards, Jerome and Typical, none of them are coming into the pits. I think all of them are going to commit to that 1 stop.
I would swap if I was the two Mercedes right now. Silo with the even better tyre delta. Of course, Finley is level at the very least with everybody that's behind him, so he shouldn't be under that much pressure. I'd get Silo in front and just to try and get after Tony Reich here. There's him and Finley and Misha make contact there going in towards turn 2. This is going to hemorrhage them a little bit of time as the boy once again goes side by side for not 1 corner but 2 corners, but late braking from Finley on the inside, and Silo, who sneaks through as well. That's a brilliant double bit of teamwork from the SCI duo to get through there on Misha, who will be thinking to himself, I've been caught a bit napping there at 2 braking zones, and that'll be disappointing for him to see. But now I'd swap Silo, get him in front, get after Tony Reich, because yeah, certainly he could be very much trying to get away here.
He certainly could, as well, we're seeing Dirk and Jerome into the pit lane, so maybe not going for that 1 stop. Maybe they are just going for a longer first stint and then maybe 2 sets of medium compounded tyres. Not sure why they would do that. The hards are the better racing tyre, which is weird because they're the harder tyre, but either way, it just appears as though that's the way that it goes. And Dirk's committed to the 2 stop with the hards. Jerome keeps it up in the air with the mediums, as that's a send from Lawrence on his own teammate Misha. Volokongan makes it 3 wide, and it's a pinch for Misha in the middle. He's got to try and get out of it as quickly as he can, and he might just have to sacrifice the positions. He remains alongside his teammate. He remains alongside Volokongan as they're still 3 wide. Misha breaks early to try and get the turn in. Lawrence is going to go through on the outside and get through on Volokongan, and he does so. 7th place for the Ferrari, who's done his job, who's gotten through, but it's at the expense of his teammate, who now drops behind Monza as well.
Yeah, a bit of a silly thing to do there for Misha. He was trying to burn whatever he had left of battery, and it wasn't a lot in the middle of a 3-wide squeeze, and that could have ended very badly indeed. And yeah, he's lost another position there, having to back out anyway. You might as well have done it before the corner, just to try and, protect yourself and maybe set yourself up for an overtake if Lawrence and Volokongan, came together or anything like that. Just, yeah, not the best decision making in my opinion there from Misha, who has very quickly lost positions in this race. Nico has got up now into P2 on the racetrack as TF10 Wards continues to lead the way. He's not made a pit stop just yet. But yeah, Tony Reich and Nico, they've broken the DRS of Silo. That's what I was on about with swap as soon as you can. Don't let the two of them get away. Really interesting dynamic to this race now. Silo on the better tyres, but Nico and Tony Reich probably with a neutral truce just to, try and do as much as they can to break away. But it's where it gets difficult. Wards is in the way and they will be begging he pits on this lap.
Certainly will, and Nico Castronovo knows a lot about being a beg as he's 3/10 back on Wards at the moment. Is he going to come into the pit lane? No, he's not. He continues on for another lap, so Nico Castronovo is going to follow through with the DRS and try and get through on him into the first corner. You'd imagine that's going to be his overtaking chance, but he's not quite got the straight line speed to get ahead of the kick Sauber, so it's going to frustratingly continue for the Williams out onto the next DRS zone. He is going to be able to seal it here, you would imagine, and he takes to the outside line. There's not much that Ward's is able to do because the traction out of the first corner is so crucial. He gets bumped, actually, by Tony Reich, and maybe even Silo finds his way through as well. As a result, indeed, he does, and Ward's drops 3 positions very quickly, and what's that's done is it's dragged Silo right back into the fight. He's only 5/10 back off the 2 leaders, and his teammate through as well. So 4 cars ready to battle, and ready to battle for basically the remainder of this race for the lead of it.
Yeah, big fight for this race lead now, involving 4 cars. I'm glad Nico's got himself involved with this because it did look like potentially processional with Silo extending on Finley and Tony Reich, but since the pit stop and what is a 2-stop race, this is all going to change again at some point. Volokongan, the best in these sort of situations where the tyre wear towards the back end of the race is critical. He's in P7, soon to be P6, and a net P5 based on that Lawrence penalty. So he's another drive that could get involved in this. There he goes for P6, overtaking the kick Sauber that has committed to a 1-stop race. And, well, the pit stops are going to come around in the not too distant future. He will continue to lose positions, but he can say he has been involved in this lead train. There goes Monza, there goes Quantum, and yes, he's just looking behind himself at the moment rather than in front, side by side between Tony Reich and Nico, and Silo looking to make it 3 wide as well. Here he goes to the inside. Tony Reich covers it off. He's got to go through the middle of Silo, the championship leader. He's got to take a risk here. Tony Reich is locked up, and Silo sneaks through. That's incredible. Silo with a double overtake, showing why he's the man to beat in this championship. Unbelievable awareness from him to read Tony Reich's desperate attempt at defending, then the lockup, and just to pick them both off. That's sensational, and it's what he does best.
It certainly is. What a move from Silo. It's just spotting your opportunities and scaring the 2 off. He probably, if he hadn't seen the brake smoke, would have braked, I can't speak, early into the corner, and then on the exit he would have tried to get the turn in, but he saw the mistake from Tony Reich and he decided to pounce on it, which cost Nico Castronovo a lot of time as well, and it allowed the Mercedes to be the quasi-inside line holder into the corner. Tony Reich is going to look to fight back into turn 3, and he's going to do so. Nico Castronovo tries to do the same thing, but he hasn't quite got the traction, and he's going to try and get it on the exit. We had 3 wide into turn 4 last lap. Are we going to have 3 wide into turn 4 once again? Silo and Tony Reich are going to make it at least 2 wide. Is Nico Castronovo going to make it 3? But no, 3's a crowd, and there's contact. There is contact between, I believe it's Nico Castronovo and Tony Reich. Nico has got an end plate off, and Finley tries to take advantage on the inside. There's only so much that Nico can do in this final sector, and it is going to be Finley that takes that 3rd place, and Nico Castronovo hemorrhaging time.
Yeah, it's on the right-hand side as well. It means he'll be limited into the left-handers in the middle sector as well. And it's not going to do him an awful lot of good into these right-handers as well. The quick corners, you can just see where he's lost a little bit of time with that damage and a position as well on the circuit to Lawrence. So, yeah, gutting. He was going to be the potential intruder to this race-long fight that we've seen so far. Dropping the traction as well. All momentum gone. Probably a bit of head loss in there as well, being frustrated at the contact. Here comes Volokongan to the inside. He'll be confident to brake later, seeing that damage. Gives him a little nudge for good measure. He's going to have to rejoin safely now, Nico, as well. This is horrendous to watch if you were cheering on Nico this evening. Quantum now as well, looking to get involved. He's seen the weakness. He's seen the vulnerability. Down the inside he goes. And that is another position lost for Nico. Tough scenes here for the Williams driver.
Certainly is, considering he had the pace earlier on in this race to fight for at least a podium, if not a race win. So the 13 will be very disappointed with the way that it's gone, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him into the pit lane at the end of this lap. He wanted to get a sighter to see how it was in the first couple of sectors, but no, it looks like he might in fact be continuing on to lap 24 on this racetrack, 2/3 of the way through, and that's a surprise from Nico Castronovo. He wants to fight for everything that he's got and try and extend this stint to the point where he wouldn't have actually needed to pit in the first place. Kareem with a 10-second time penalty, he's called it quits, potentially as a result of it, which is unfortunate. That's our second DNF of this race, and well, that is going to be very, very... I mean, Nico's done 2 sets of the hard compound tyres, and this is where the strategy can really eat you up, is where you have damage. If you're on the mediums, you can come into the pit, switch to the hards, go to the end of the race. Unfortunately, Nico picked his up while he's on the hards, having switched on the hards. So now he has to extend this stint to a set of the mediums, and he's got to do probably another 2 or so laps before he does so, as Schumacher becomes our 3rd retirement of the race. And
Raining.
it does appear, you're absolutely right, it does appear to be the first few drops coming on, and it's not come on until after you've said that from my end, but it is indeed raining. So that is why Nico Castronovo stayed out. That's why all of these drivers have stayed out. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them gamble at this lap, whether it is Nico Castronovo, whether it's somebody else. It's not going to be anybody on this occasion. I would have gone for it if I was Nico especially, you know, because he's not got much to lose, apart from a lot of time, which is what he's going to lose anyway. So he may as well. There's yellow flags out for the parked car of Schumacher. Two-time penalties as Kevin Zunneberg and Venom pick them up. Jerome is going to stay in the race as Venom is going to retire, and it is decided by the AI of Venom that it is now time for the intermediates. We'll see what Kevin Zunneberg and Jerome go on to as Fana Spinoda gets through on Misha, and Misha tries to fight his way back and does so. Yeah, it's definitely intermediate time, as Zunneberg unfortunately retires from the race as well. Not sure why he's done that. But yeah, it's definitely intermediate time, so it's time for them to really start to think about their strategies.
Yeah, indeed. I wasn't really expecting or anticipating any rain in this race, but suddenly it's just started to absolutely bucket it down, and drivers already struggling on the greasy surface. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more drivers. So our test subject, Jerome, at the minute, is probably on pace with those medium runners, and indeed drivers are heading into the pit lane. Tony Rees, Silo, Lawrence, Finley is having to stay out to not double stack with his teammates, so he's going to lose an awful lot of time as he drifts round the final corner. Quite incredible scenes now here in Austria. 10 laps to go, and we have a wet ending to this race. That explains the strategy. That explains the double hard compound of tyres. They would have had to pit once anyway off of a certain compound, so why not make the most of that harder option, which means most drivers got 3 runs in qualifying instead rather than 4, I would presume. And yeah, well, it all adds up now.
Certainly does, and well, we'll see what the pace is. At the moment, it does look like the intermediate tyres are faster once you get them kicked into gear. At the moment, Tony Rees, who is our leader, who is our test subject, hasn't quite got them kicked into gear, but there we go. 11.4 is the split out of the exit of turn number 3. We'll see what it is out of the exit of turn 4. So heading in, it was 11.2 on the exit of the corner. He's got them fired up now, and he's fired up as well as Tony Rees. It's 10.6. So these 3 took a gamble in staying out, but it was an ill-fated gamble, and you can see how much they're struggling now to keep any form of traction in the final sector. And Tony Rees has gained 2 whole seconds in the space of 2 corners, so it's very much a gamble that hasn't paid off, and it's unfortunate, especially for Finley and Misha, who were in very good positions, had very, very good pace, Finley especially, and now they've bottled it simply because, well, in Finley's case, he didn't want to double stack with his teammate. We'll see. Well, they come out as around the final corner comes Tony Rees, comes Silo, and then 1.3 seconds back comes Lawrence. But yeah, it's going to be the Red Bull leading the Mercedes onto the next lap of this race. And well, no DRS anymore. It's going to be 10 times more difficult to overtake around the Österreich ring.
Yeah, it is indeed. No DRS and no slipstream, indeed, with this game. It's such a tough gig now for the remainder of this one. We'll have to see some unorthodox overtakes around potentially the middle sector of this circuit, using the traction zones as well. To be out of turn 1, turn 4, turn 6 and turn 7 are all going to be hot spots for the remainder of this race. Lawrence soaring at the steering wheel as I just flick through some of the drivers to see how they're getting on as the gaps start to widen up now, as you'd expect. But Silo keeping the pressure on. The closest battle on the circuit is the one for the race lead. We've had such an exciting race, to be honest. I mean, good to come in for this one race and see an absolute thriller thus far. The rain is just adding to it. Could go either way.
It certainly could. It's going to be very interesting to see who's prepared for these conditions the best, and I think you might find that it's the drivers without straight line speed in the dry that are going to be prepared for this the best, because they've upped their wings significantly for this occasion and for this occurrence, because they knew there was going to be rain at the end of the race and they wanted to make sure they was well set for it. This is why Lawrence has made such a huge comeback onto the podium, because he surely prepared for the intermediate conditions, but 6 seconds worth of penalties for the Ferrari isn't exactly the situation he would have been hoping to be in. Typical becomes our 6th retiree of this race, and that's an Aston Martin double DNF, the first team to double DNF in this race, and wouldn't be surprised if it's the, or I'd be hoping at least, that it's going to be the last, although Wards is 3.4 seconds off of the pack, so you never know. But Tony Reich and Silo lead the way with a whole 9/10 gap back to Lawrence, who appears to be much quicker in the final sector, but nowhere in the first two. And that is what's going to be the most crucial part. It's the fact that he isn't able to keep that pace up on a consistent basis around a whole lap. And that is because the way that he set himself up. But it's one of those cases where Reich and Silo, they've found a good balance between the two that's kept them quick, because you can be as quick as you like in the final sector. If you're not quick in sector 1 or sector 2 where the prime overtaking opportunities are, then you can find yourself lacking. Lawrence 5/10 off, and I wouldn't be surprised if that jumps all the way back up to 9/10 by the time they head down to turn 4. Volakongen, in the meantime, is right behind them and ready to pounce for that final podium place, but a 1.1 second gap might be a little bit too much of an ask.
Yeah, certainly the Parc Ferme situation coming into play now. You've got to use what you've dealt yourself with at the start of this race to make the most of these conditions. And at the moment, not much on-track action, but Zwiadek is having something to say about that as he goes up the inside for P11 of Misha, who, you know, had a decent qualifying, really got himself involved in this race, but he's down 8 positions in this one. So, yeah, just not been on the right page with setup and racecraft in this one, and has now dropped quite a way out of the points. Dirk is looking for potentially a P7 finish maximum here. Silo is looking for his 4th win in a row, and certainly one hand on the title. 7 laps to go when we cross the line. Lawrence is doing everything he can to try and get involved in this fight, but he will come to regret, and he certainly already does, the 6 seconds of penalties he has.
Yeah, you would imagine so at the end of the race, unless he's able to get removed, which at Austria, very unlikely. Then Lawrence will be finding himself dropping all the way down to provisionally what would be at the moment 6th place, because of Nico Castronova being 4.9 seconds off. That is where the Williams finds himself at the moment, but you'd imagine he's going to be a bit closer. Tony Reich slower in the corner. Silo makes a bit of a bump on his rear, and so he's unable to get the run on the exit of the corner as Quantum gets through on Monza, the Alpine even getting through on the Haas driver, who tries to fight back into turn 4. Is there going to be traction on the wet line? Not quite, and Quantum is able to hold on in the end, although Monza does try and give it a bit of a fight back, and I'd imagine that that's not going to be the last we see of the Alpine or the Haas across the course of this race. Silo still remains about 2/10 off the back of Tony Reich in the lead of this race, and well, the Mercedes against the Red Bull, they are looking like a very, very good pairing right now to go ahead and fight for the lead of the race, which will be contested and will be decided in 6 laps' time.
Yeah, a joint record on the line for this season as well. Diego Zorzo got 4 wins in a row in PC Tier 2 at the start of this season. Silo is looking to match that and do 4 in a row of his own. This is the closest he's been, within 1.5 tenths now. Is Silo, he pulls to the left-hand side. He's going to have to brake later on the outside. In towards turn number 3 they go. Contact between the pair of them. Silo tried to turn in as early as possible to not run out wide there, and in doing so catches Tony Reich, but he gets good traction, does the Frenchman. They're still side by side here for the race lead. Can Silo go the long way round once again? He locks up the front row. right. And again, Tony Ricci is just having to let him know he's there. And he does so to still hold the inside line. But for the first time, it turns into the outside. Can he get the move done around there? Or at least to retain the race lead? Inside for the second corner, and I think finally it is done for Silo. That record of 4 race wins in a row for the season is still on, and he gets the move done in a fashion, but now he's got to defend it because Tony Ricci is not going anywhere.
Tony's going to get his head down. He's going to really be aggressive on the back of the Mercedes as they head down to the straight and head down to the 3 straights in a row. Tony is going to brake earlier into turn number 1 to try and get that turn in, try and get that exit on the Shazoo Cedar Igniter's driver. Lawrence in the background hoping that these two are going to have a tangle so he can really have an opportunity at a podium still, but I think it's going to be in vain. Tony remains 2 tenths back, and he's going to sit 2 tenths back for now as they head to turn number 3. But these two having one of the fights of the season so far, and it'll be very interesting to see the conclusion of it, and we'll see who comes out on top. Is it going to be the case that Tony Ricci is able to topple Silo? Is it going to be the case that Silo picks up yet another race victory that would take him, as you say, to 4 on the spin, and would be matching Diego Zorzo? Don't forget as well that the first 3 races of the season were taken by the Shazoo Cedar Igniter's driver of Dirk, who currently finds himself in 8th place. So the Shazoo Cedar Igniter's dominance leaks over from World over into World Online Racing console tier number 1. And yes, Silo 4 tenths ahead of Tony Ricci. I don't think there's going to be any pressure heading into the next lap.
No, don't think so. The gap, again, needs to be under 2-3 tenths, doesn't it, to have any sort of chance of a lunge or anything like that with the way that this game is. But Silo just doing as much as he can now, and it's not his familiar dominant win. And he's had, 2 second stints in this race. Had a second dry stint and now a second wet stint. And to be honest, he's dealt with both of those beautifully. Just adapts to any condition, and he is doing so again here. Quantum, though, trying to go for P4, trying to get good traction out of turn 3 to see if he can weigh up an overtake on Volokongan, who's holding his nerve in P4, and net P3 at this stage would be his 3rd podium of the season if he can hold on to it. Quantum is looking for his 2nd podium and his 6th consecutive points finish in a row. For Volokongan, it would be 7, regardless of where he finishes in the points in this one. Incredible consistency shown by the 2 of these drivers recently. I wouldn't want it to come to an end with a collision, so keep it clean, boys.
Yeah, and they're certainly going to try and keep it clean. It has been clean so far throughout the course of this race, and SCI Silo still continues to lead the way as we'll head on to the 3rd to last lap of this Grand Prix, and Silo is going to continue to lead onto it. He's had the dominance for the majority of this match, and it appears to be that that is going to be the case. And I say match because it's basically been a 1v1 between the two ever since the rain started coming down on the Red Bull Ring. And yeah, it just looks to be the case that it's going to remain the same. Volokongan's not been able to close in on the top 2, and Lawrence hasn't really been able to challenge. He's decided really not to challenge, and that makes entire sense because he's he's got that 6 second worth of penalties. That's Nico Castronovo having a problem in turn number 3, and while he's going to drop down quite significantly, he's going to try and fight it back on the outside line on Finley. Is he going to be able to have the run? There's a bit of contact between the two. Finley makes it 3 wide with Dirk getting him involved, having a huge slide. Dirk is able to stay ahead. Finley somehow holds on ahead of Nico Castronovo, but for how much longer is that going to last? It's going to be 3 wide again. Nico sends it. So does Fanna Spinoda. It gets scrappy further down the order for the points. And Nico and Fanna Spinoda, actually, in the end, they create an incredible guard for the 2 Williams to make their way through. Finley and Dirk lose out.
Yeah, Dirk will take a penalty for that. That was a punt to pass. Up at turn 3. He's around! And our 2nd place man in the championship. He's had his lap go from bad to worse. Finley picks up a 3 second time penalty in the process. And any sort of penalty he may incur will no longer matter. He drops to the back again. And for the 3rd race in a row, SCI Dirk will not score, giving Silo not only a 4th race win in a row as it stands, but a 52-point lead in the championship with 3 races to run. Yeah, quite incredible scenes here. in Austria. Well, it won't be a 52-point lead. It will be 38 because Tony Reich will inherit P2 in the championship. So ignore me on that one. But a 52-point gap to Dirk, that is for certain, and he will drop actually below Volokongan in the championship and down to fourth. So yeah, really, really difficult times for Dirk at this phase of the season. You just wonder how he picks himself up because, again, he's not been himself and the driver we know he is. Final lap then of this race. Silo is on course for a fourth race victory in a row unless Tony Reich can reel in that 6/10 gap. But it's just been expanding every lap, and it's got to that sort of dirty air period where he's just kind of there and can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, you want to be about 6/10 back, getting closer, and you're really, really struggling. And, well, that's what Tony Reich has had to suffer with. So maybe it's tyre wear that he's been picking up that has meant that he's been unable to take it home, really. And that might be the deciding factor in this race. Either way, Tony is going to be 8/10 off of Silo into the final overtaking opportunity on this lap. The final realistic overtaking opportunity on this lap. Lawrence is going to be in third place. He dropped off as well the last couple of laps, and he's going to drop to sixth place because of the contact and because of the moments with the two Williams cars and the Mercedes, and of course the B-Carb of Dirk, whose season has gone from bad to worse, whilst the season has gone better and better for our championship leader. He has managed to extend his championship lead with some incredible drives, and he's put on yet another one here today. The Mercedes has just 2 corners to go to confirm 4 on the bounce. What a season this man is having, and he's getting closer and closer to that championship title. 2 hands on the Austrian Grand Prix, 1 hand on the title. Silo is victorious.
Yeah, and everybody showboating across the line, making most of those conditions. Tony Reich, a valiant effort in P2. Volokongan's on the podium in P3. Quantum gave him a good run for his money and a solid race overall to keep his point streak going. Monza in the top 5, and that is for the first time this season that Monza's been able to pull that off. He's been showing signs of it, but finally a race has come together, and he'll be pleased with that one. Lawrence with the 6 seconds of penalties at the start of the race, he'll be disappointed, but some brilliant battles towards the front of the field, and I have to say that's probably the best race I've seen on this game so far. You know, I've mainly done the Legacy Division, but I really enjoyed that. There were some great lap-long battles throughout that.
Yes, and of course, you still have some very good races in the Legacy Division as well to keep an eye on, although the season has ended for at least for 2025. But that is going to be that for this evening's action. It's victorious for Silo from 3rd on the field, 2nd for Tony Reich from 2nd on the grid as well. So he'll feel as though he missed out after a dramatic race. Volokongan in 3rd, Quantum in a very good 4th, and Monza just off of his podium target in 5th. Lawrence finished on the podium, but unfortunately 6 seconds worth of penalties drops him down. Then Fana Spinoda, Nico Castronovo, who could have done better in this race and was unfortunate not to. Zviade, and then Misha, another driver who has had the same problems, rounds out the top 10. Finley, yet another driver who will feel as though he missed out. He's in 11th with Wards in 12th. Jerome, and then Dirk rounding out the finishers. Typical Zanneberg, Venom, Schumacher, Kareem, and Manga rounding out the drivers. But that's going to be it. Any final words from you, Joseph, before we round it out?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what you said. It's a hand on the championship for Silo, isn't it? And, you know, very much mirroring the sort of season that Zorzo's had over on PC and whatnot. So, yeah, just expanding his dominance, showing why he is the best on the platform at this moment in time. And when we come back after Christmas, who knows what track will be on? It doesn't look like it's going to be Bahrain, but I'd stay tuned because it could be our earliest championship decider.
Certainly could. We will be seeing what will happen. But of course, make sure that you are, of course, enjoying your winter break and back here on January the 9th for Bahrain or for Zandvoort. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And, well, until next time, it's goodbye.